So we're going to do handling common buyer objections. I want to welcome everybody to the buyer series. We're going to do this every Thursday, 4 p.m. as we have been doing. And moving forward, and it's going to be a different topic every single time we do it. Today, we are going to cover handling common buyer objections. It's going to help us improve our conversion, of course, right? So when we have prepared responses, we are more likely to improve conversion. Have the questions to the solution to their problems, I like to say. So my name is Lugashi. I'm a buyer specialist with the Zamir Group, top team in the entire NJMLS for the last 5 years. Of course, what that means to you is that I'm going to share my experiences, conversations, and meetings, everything I've learned from them with you to help you shorten your learning curve. Our goal for today is the same as always. It is to provide you as much value as possible. And I'm trying to let these people in. Hold on for a second. Can't see my screen. I'm going to stop this for a second. And there we go. All right, let me get you back up here. And sure. All right. So let's get to this. So let's provide you some value. Here we go. So I always like to start with a quote. It's a John Wooden quote. It says, "Failure to prepare is preparing to fail." Well, you know, the ability to prepare on our end, what does that look like? Well, in the real estate occupation, when we know what happens next, or we know how to respond best in order to convert best, then we're going to have more success, or work less, make more. So in this case, what are we doing in our downtime? What are we doing when we're not on appointments? Well, we're, you know, internalizing scripts, we're role playing, we're improving our skill set so that we do have the solutions to the problems presented to us, so that we do have the ability to take advantage of the opportunities that are presented to us. Because if we are not prepared for those opportunities when they do present themselves, what happens? They are more than likely going to be missed opportunities. And that, of course, is going to be taking advantage from somebody else. So let's prepare, right? Let's get better while we are not on meetings, appointments, and all that fun stuff. All right, let's go. Next slide. So when we're talking about handling common buyer objections, what are some ways that you know, will help us do so? Well, you know, pre-qualifying is actually a pretty big one. Why is pre-qualifying a sort of preparation? Why is it a tool to help us convert at a higher level? Well, the majority of agents, I would say, and I was one of those too, I did it plenty of times, are go and show agents, are jump and run agents. And what they're not doing is they're not pre-qualifying. They're getting those calls, and the consumer is requesting to see 123 Main Street tomorrow, today, whenever they feel, and the agent's like, sure, I'm going to meet you there. And that is, of course, a type of script, yet it's not necessarily the best one. There is such a thing called a pre-qualification script, and that will improve your conversion. How so? Well, we know by asking some simple questions that the majority of consumers, prospects, buyers do answer. When you ask them, we'll know exactly how much time, energy, effort to invest into that particular person, right? Not only how much time to invest, but maybe if they're even worth investing. They might not be a good fit. They might not be ready. They might be unrealistic, right? So we have to discover exactly what that situation is. So a pre-qualification script, it's a good way to just discover exactly where you stand with that particular prospect, if it's worth your time, or how much time you should be spending on them. Of course, we'll discover other things, you know, some basic pre-qualification questions. It's, you know, where else are you looking? How long you've been looking for, and do you own or do you rent? Now, that's an important question for one major reason, because if they own, the follow-up question naturally is, do you need to sell in order to buy? And that may very well lead you to a listing appointment. So it's worth asking the questions. You'll get plenty of information, an abundance of information out of that prospect, and it will reap results, right? It will benefit you. It will be advantageous to you. It will be of value to you as an agent. Now, when it comes to motivation, what I found was there's many agents, when they go to listing appointments, and one of the first questions they ask the seller is, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, let me let these people in. Why are you selling, right? And hold on, let me co-host. All right. Arlene, I made you a co-host just to let people in because I'm terrible at or it's difficult for me to multitask. It's a skill I have not mastered yet. We'll call it that. So I just made you a co-host so you can let people in or check the chat out for me, okay? I'm just going to do my thing. If anybody has any questions, just stop me or else I'll keep talking. So when it comes to motivation, I found that many agents, one of the first questions they ask a seller is, well, why are you selling, Mr. and Mrs. Seller? Yet, when it comes to buyers, they forget to ask the question, why are you buying, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer? It's really important to discover what their motivation is, and there's different ways to do it. Yet you want to know if it's because that's it. They don't want to rent anymore. They don't want to pay somebody else's mortgage. They're tired of living with their in-laws in the basement, or they're tired of being in a hotel. They've already sold their home and they got nowhere to go. They're relocating out of state and they need a roof over their head. They've submitted maybe 20 offers and lost. So you really want to know what the motivation of a buyer is to buy the home, what their sense of urgency is, because it will help you discover exactly how much time, energy, and effort, again, to invest in that particular person, right? So definitely want to discover their motivation. It will help us as agents discover their motivation. And of course, what you see down there on the bottom left of your screen, it says buyer consultation. Now, this is not a buyer consultation class. We actually did that last week. You can go back and look at the recording for that one. We did it actually several times over, but I do want to emphasize it here. It does help us handle objections. It actually helps us handle the majority of the objections. If you're using the buyer consultation as a tool, what it allows us to do as agents is actually to handle up to 90% of the future objections upfront. And that can, that takes many forms. Yet, if you are not doing buyer consultations, then throughout the transaction, you're more likely to have objections to come up that you will need to handle. So you can either handle them upfront, or you can just wait for the scenario to present itself, and of course you'll have to address it then. So the buyer consultation, I'm just presenting it here as a very good tool to handle common buyer objections. It's one of the benefits of conducting a buyer consultation, right? It allows us to do just that. Now, of course, if we're looking to handle buyer objections, we can always be improving our skills. It goes back to that preparation. And I don't mean preparing the buyer, I mean preparing ourselves, right? So what are we doing? How are we preparing ourselves to handle these objections? Well, we're internalizing, these responses so that when they do come up, that we have them at hand, at the end of our fingertips, and we can just use them in a split second. And that will help us improve our conversion, right? Because if you don't have a response to an objection or a common objection, then most likely you won't have the ability to handle it. Yet if you have the objection handler in your back pocket, of course it increases the likelihood you'll be able to handle it. Now, common objections, they tend to see different forms. It's the same ones over and over again, yet maybe they're presented differently. So if they come up over and over, we'll just have to respond differently every single time. There's different ways to do it. And the best advice I can give you is, let's just say you don't know a good way to answer at that very moment. Just go back to the benefit and think to yourself, what's the benefit of this or that? So we're going to talk about some common ones, and then we're going to open it up to some scenarios and Q&A at the end. Okay, guys? Anybody have any questions so far?
You got nothing in the chat at this point.
What's that?
Nothing's in the chat at this point.
Oh, okay, that's fine. So that means I'm doing a good job of covering stuff. But if you do have any questions, just stop me, unmute yourself, ask the question. I'll be more than happy to address it. So let's keep going. So what kind of objections are we seeing? What kind of objections, common buyer objections, are you seeing? Let me ask you that. And when you're working with buyers, what comes up a lot? What have you had to work through? What have you struggled with? What were you able to successfully respond to? Can you think of anything? And even if you can't, it's okay, because we're going to have some examples coming up. What's that?
They're afraid to overpay.
Oh, overpay? That's a big one. Actually, I would say that's the top concern of a buyer's. Now, I don't necessarily include it in the objection, but it could be part of the actual objections that come up. So the number one concern of a buyer when buying a home is, I don't want to overpay. And it doesn't matter what the market conditions are, whether it's a hot seller's market or a hot buyer's market, the number one concern of a buyer when buying a home has always been, I don't want to overpay. So this is where our skill will come in. This is how we can handle the objection in those cases. Well, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, would it be helpful to you if I was able to tell you every property that we walked into, not what you're willing to pay, what another buyer is willing to pay? Would that be helpful to you? Yeah, I don't want you to overpay. Oh, and by the way, that line works great when it comes to for sale by owners and going directly to listing agents. Right, as part of the buyer consultation, I call it a tale of two markets. You know, and it goes something like this. I'm sorry, in Shift, it's called a tale of two markets. I changed it a little bit. I call it a tale of two products. So when I'm presenting them with a scenario, with a story, I'm saying, hey, listen, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, there's two types of products in any market. There's not, the majority of them are one type of product. It's your overpriced, still can get plenty of activity, no offers type of product. And the other product is going to be your priced well, even underpriced. It's going to have multiple offers, here today, gone tomorrow type of product. Now, you don't necessarily know which product you're walking into. No, great, that's what I'm here for. Would it be helpful to you, yada, yada, yada. And then when we get to the for sale by owner point or the open house point or whatever point you want to insert in your buyer consultation, you go back to it. Well, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, you remember that I told you there was only two types of products? Well, for sale by owners, they tend to be this type of product, your overpriced type of product. And do you think that owner or that listing agent or the agent conducting the open house, do you think that they're going to push you towards their number, or they're going to promote your best interest and negotiate on your behalf like I will? Well, they'll probably push me towards their number. I was like, yeah, that's right. And I don't want you to overpay, do you? No, great. I'm glad that we met. You're in good hands. I'm going to take very good care of you. Sounds good? And I handle the objection. That typically does the job, right? Because I'm pinching them where it hurts. All right, it's a pain versus pleasure script. We're pinching them where it hurts most. I don't want to overpay. So you're bringing them closer to you, and you're handling the objection of for sale by owners. What happens with for sale by owners? What happens with open houses? What happens when you see a property on Zillow, Redfin, whatever? What happens next? We have to educate them what happens next. Why do we have to educate them what happens next? Because if we don't, they'll make assumptions. And when you let somebody else set the expectation and make assumptions, that's where surprises happen. That's where they do go direct to for sale by owner. That's where they do go direct to a listing agent. So we have to handle those objections up front. I know that makes sense. So that was a long answer to Arlene's question, to Arlene's scenario, yet I'm sure it was a valid one. Let's keep going. So the offer itself. Now, this is a very common objection, and it is because I'm going to ask you guys a question, and then you'll realize why it's so. When do you believe is the first time your traditional agent is presenting the actual paperwork for an offer, also known as a residential purchase agreement, residential sales agreement, to their buyers for the first time? When does the buyer typically see that document for the first time? If you had to guess.
Typically when they make an offer.
Leslie, you like this house enough to submit an offer on it? Great, please sign this legal document you've never seen before in your life. What comes right after? What is your response?
I mean, I'm completely overwhelmed.
Yeah, so what do you say? Let me review it. Let me look over it. Give me a few days. Let my attorney look over it, right? There's various types of responses that happen. And what happens to this house in probably the craziest, most difficult, most volatile sales market we've ever seen.
It's gone.
It is gone. Yeah, and who's responsible for that? Where does responsibility lie? Now, your traditional agent, the one that says, "Yeah, you missed a house," is going to find fault in their buyers. Yet I say, where's our DNA in it? Where's our responsibility in that? We could have prepared them what an offer looks like, and they should feel very comfortable signing one of these well before they're submitting the offer. So I'm just going to give you guys a tip. All right. So of course, even before I meet with them for the buyer consultation, as soon as I've scheduled the appointment to meet with them, what am I doing? I hang up the phone. I go to my inbox, in my email. I'm composing an email. It's pleasure speaking with you. I put an intro in there with links to my reviews, and at the very bottom, I'm saying, please find attached a complimentary home buyer's guide and a copy of a NJ residential purchase agreement for your review. Click, click. What have I done? I've given them basically a copy in their inbox. Now, when they come in or when I first meet them, I'm providing them a folder with a hard copy. Now, during the buyer consultation, I also have an opportunity to review it with them. Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, you should feel very comfortable signing one of these. We're really just looking to communicate three things to the other party, the seller. That's sales price, deposit, down payment, closing date. All that stuff is on page 2 and page 3. The rest of the stuff is a lot of rules, regulations. You should feel very comfortable signing one of these. Any questions? No. Great. Wonderful. When it is time to submit an offer, it's click, click, e-signatures, or sign, sign, right? So we've handled the objection up front. So if you want to be a little bit better than your traditional agent and you want to handle this type of objection up front, there are opportunities to do it. Again, where is our responsibility in that objection, right? Let's handle that objection up front. Any other questions, thoughts, opinions?
Would you ever suggest that they fill out the offer minus the address, obviously, because they don't know where they're looking at, so that all the rest of the information is filled out and ready to go? Or is it not necessary?
You could. I've never done it that way. I'm not saying you could. There's no right or wrong. It's always what's best practice for you. I will always tell you, hey, listen, if you like something that I say, use it. If you don't like something I say, then forget it. There may be practices that work for you and don't work for me, and vice versa. So you're going to customize how you do things, your system, so to speak, as you move along. The best advice I can give you is handle the objection up front so it doesn't become an issue later.
Right. I was just wondering if you did that.
What I do is I'll review it with them.
Okay.
So the script, I kind of mentioned part of the script just before, and I said, well, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, did you receive this email that I sent you? Did you read the attachment? The majority of them actually say no, I didn't get time to open it or whatever, and that's okay. I have a hard copy here for you to also review. If you have any questions about this particular document at any point in time, feel free to ask me. And then again, what I do want you to know is that New Jersey is a very pro-buyer process. You should feel very comfortable signing one of these. All we're looking to do is communicate three things: sales price, down payment, closing date. All that is right here. Yada, yada, yada. You should feel very comfortable signing one of these. Any questions? I'm telling you, very rarely do I have anybody that has a question about it. Typically, when it's time to sign the offer, they just sign the offer and we're good to go. So because I haven't had too much pushback, I didn't have to modify that too much.
Okay.
All right, let's go next. Yeah, we're good on time. Good. Inspections. Now, I say this is a common buyer objection, and it doesn't matter what type of markets you're in, because we're not preparing them. We're not handling the objection up front. Now, what makes me say that this is an objection? This is a common buyer objection. What happens with inspections?
Things are found that you don't necessarily expect.
No, that happens all the time. There's no perfect house. I've had 40 items on a new construction that have to be corrected. So it doesn't matter how, they will always find something. It's not the question if they find something, they will. But why? What's the objection that comes up from the buyer side?
Oh, do I have to pay for this?
They have questions. They don't know what to do, right? So who's responsible who's responsible for that? To educate them about what happens next, what to do.
Well, you.
Yeah, the agent, all right? So what happens is, and this happened to me before, and if you've done enough transactions and you didn't learn the hard way, I learned the hard way. That's why I'm telling you, you want to prepare them before. Now, what I mean by that is, have you ever had a buyer that took the report, sent it to the attorney, and said, request the seller to fix everything on the report? Every single item on the report. So that's happened to me, and I call that learning the hard way of not preparing them, because they don't know what to do. Now, does it increase the likelihood or decrease the likelihood you get to the closing when that happens?
Definitely decrease.
It definitely decreases likelihood. So again, where's our responsibility? Where's our DNA in that? Well, again, we need to prepare them. We need to set the expectations of what this looks like, what happens, all that fun stuff. So during the consultation, not just during the consultation, they don't remember everything we tell them during the consultation. We always have to tell them what happens next too. So during the consultation, we're communicating to them, well, this is what happens during the inspection contingency. So we're going to get a home inspector. The home inspector will conduct an inspection. They will provide us a report. Once we get that report, you and me, Mr., Mrs. Buyer, we're going to create a short list of items that you would like to request from the seller to address. We're going to send it over to the seller attorney. They're going to say yes, yes. They're going to say no, but I'll provide your credit. All they'll say no to each of the individual items. It's a negotiation by all means, and then we're going to move forward, right? So what did I do? I set the expectation. We're only taking this short list of concerns. We're not requesting the whole report. So it's only what's most important to you. We're also obviously discussing with them what environmental items, especially if you're communicating to the seller that you're buying it as is, with the exception of environmental, mechanical, structural, health issues, all that fun stuff. So we have to tell them what that means. We have to educate them. You don't want to lay it on them right before a highest and best deadline. So to prevent from objections arising, to prevent from surprises from happening, we're going to educate them up front. We're going to handle this particular objection up front so that we don't have surprises later. Make sense? Yeah, now how you cover it, really, I mean, you can cover it any which way. As long as you cover it, you're already ahead of the game. All right? Any questions so far?
Can you, I kind of know, I mean, I'm pretty sure of the answer to this question, but can you just go over the difference between the environmental, mechanical, and structural? Like what?
Sure. First, before I get to that, I want to differentiate between I'm waiving the inspection contingency and I'm buying it as is. Those are two different things.
Right.
Okay. And you heard me say it before, yet sometimes, you know, repetition is the key to understanding also. So waiving inspection contingency means you can't ask for nothing. You're waiving your inspection contingency, which I haven't done. Unless it's a cash builder, they're knocking down the house, fine. But generally, it's especially to compete nowadays in today's environment, you're saying buyer to person as is condition, with the exception of environmental, structural, health issues is the more common one. Mechanical you can throw in there as well, but that's a huge difference between waiving inspection contingency and saying buying as is with the exception of. Now, what does that include? Well, environmental includes a lot of stuff. Structural includes some stuff. Health includes some stuff. So it depends. Now, when we're talking about underground oil tanks, right, abandoned oil tanks, that's a pretty common thing, especially when Bergen County, many of the homes had an original heat source of oil, right? So seller's gonna have to remove and remediate if that comes up. And of course, asbestos, we see, you know, the tile floors. Sometimes we see insulation on the piping. On a rare occasion, you'll see it on a ceiling. You know, lead paint and radon levels and septic and well, which I don't deal a lot with septic and well. But, you know, some of you may work in areas that it's fairly common. I don't work in areas that have radon issues either, but again, some of you may work in areas that do. So those are considered environmental issues, also / health issues, depending how the attorneys want to define it. That's also why I started adding the health in there, because the attorneys started arguing with me what's health and what's environmental. So I just included health in there at the end so they can't argue. You so there's different things. Obviously, there's, when you see pest droppings, you can request a treatment. And of course, termites is a big one. 9 out of 10 homes are going to have some signage of previous termites or treatments. So it's, obviously these homes are built from wood frames. So it's just a matter of time before any of these homes get termite. But you don't want something with severe damage, which I've seen one really bad one time where it got everywhere. So, those are covered in environmental and structural. Obviously, if there's a crack in the foundation so wide you can see daylight through it, that's a structural issue, right? And if there's a compromised load-bearing beam, well, that's a structural issue. And you can still include. I would still include major plumbing, electrical, and roof issues. If there's a major issue, it's still material to the transaction. Now, even when you say as is, your clients, they don't know this. They get confused many times. They have to understand they still have the ability to conduct a home inspection. They still have the ability to request any items of concern to the seller address. So even though you're saying as is the exception of, they still have that ability, okay? It's called an inspection contingency. We're not giving it up. That's why there's a huge difference between inspection contingency and as is, okay? That kind of answer your question, hopefully fully?
Yes.
Yeah, good. All right, let's go next.
Ron?
Attorneys. Now, why do I call an attorney selection an objection?
Sorry, you have one question from Viola.
Oh, go ahead. In regards to the last one, go ahead. What's the question?
Just a quick question. I wanted to know if it's possible to have to tell a buyer that even though that they're buying as is, or if the house is listed as is, they can still get all those inspections done.
Of course, you still have the ability to conduct the inspections. You're not waiving your inspection contingency. You're saying as is, but you're still going to go ahead and conduct your inspection. A lot of buyers, it scares them off to saying as is because they don't know that. So we have to explain that to them. Okay. So explain to them, yes, you can still go ahead and do all the inspections that you want in order to kind of do your own due diligence.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. Yeah, and of course, what kind of inspections can a buyer do? Obviously, there's the general home inspection, right? And that typically includes termite and radon inspection as well. Well, what else? What other inspections can they do? They can do an oil tank sweep is typically, it's always recommended from the attorneys, even if there was a previous oil tank sweep already conducted. A sewer line inspection, a chimney inspection. You can also get your specialists in there if needed. You can get a roofer in there. You can get, you ever have any problems with trees? An arborist in there. So, there's different types of additional inspections that your buyer can do. But the most popular one obviously is just a generic home inspection. All right.
Chimney if they got a fireplace.
Yeah, if they got if they have a chimney also, yeah. The new ones might not have chimneys at all.
Right. Some of them have direct vents because there's a lot of times two different chimneys. But also, I've had people that have done mold and they've done air quality.
Yeah, so and I missed a few. Yeah, and I've had plenty of those too. So, and the air quality test typically comes in if there's any type of asbestos is being removed. That's when you start seeing the air quality test being ordered as well. So they want to make sure that everything's fine. So yeah, if the mold, we'll typically see it in basements and attics. Those are the biggest culprits. So, and what you need to know about inspections. Obviously, we're not home inspectors, but if you can point out things, you want to handle an objection up front. Again, we're talking about handling objections. While you're not a home inspector, you can point out the age or the year that a boiler was installed. It's right on the permit, right? If the permit's actually showing, many of them might not have, but if there's a permit and there's a year, you can point to it. Hey, say, look, it's permit. It says it was installed on this date. Hey, look at that water heater permit. Oh, look at that electrical panel. It says it's 200 amps. So you can point to things, and that'll obviously, the more information they have, the more comfortable they feel with the whole process, right? So.
But if they're waiving, if they're waiving the inspection for nowadays a really strong offer, like trying to get the house and doing everything they can, if they say quote unquote, we'll waive the inspection. That means that there's no inspection conducted at all, or is there still?
You can still conduct the inspection technically, but you can't ask for anything because you're waiving your inspection contingency.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
which
you do the inspection, you find certain things, and it is what it is, and you waived it. So.
Yeah,
Okay.
but there's other ways there's other protections the buyer has. Yeah, that's the best one. I always say the inspection contingency is the best protection a buyer has. The only reason I see you should waive your inspection contingency is if it's really just a knockdown, it's a cash deal, and it's a builder that's gonna just build something right on top of it. That's the only time I've ever waived an inspection contingency, mortgage contingency, appraisal contingency, like all, the whole shebang. That's the only reason that you would do it. If the buyer understands the consequences, and we're educating them and we're communicating to them exactly what the worst case scenario is and what all this means, and they still want to do that, that's fine. We're the advisors, we're the guides. We're going to educate them so they can make a good real estate decision. That's what our job is as agents, right? Mm-hmm. So if they still want to do, whatever, waive this and waive that, then that's fine. But, you can say, these are your options. You can do this, you can do this, and you can do this. And that's what each of these means. And I would recommend going this way. How would you like to proceed? We're the navigation system, yet they're the drivers. They get to choose the ultimate direction they want to drive in. Okay?
Good analogy.
Yeah. Let's go to
Just
to attorney.
remember on that though, have them sign off that you gave them permission, you gave them the pros and the cons, and that it's their choice to waive it. Sorry, Ron knows I'm your management.
No, it's okay. So Arlene, this is what I love about Arlene. And I'm not even kidding. I hear Arlene's voice in my head sometimes. So Arlene is like the broker on my shoulder type of thing, because I don't say certain stuff. And then she says, and it's like, what, that's the right way to go about it. And I forget to say stuff. So thank you, Arlene. Always an asset. So what makes me say that the attorney or attorney selection may be an objection and we have to handle it up front? Well, I say that because, some attorneys are deal makers and some are deal breakers, and some are solution finders and some are fault finders, and some will make decisions without even consulting with their clients because they know what's best for their client. And some will CC you and some will not CC you on any of the emails. So some are more responsive and some are less responsive. Some know what the market conditions are and some don't know what the market conditions are, and some don't care. So what makes attorney selection an objection, and how can we handle that objection with an objection handler? What do you guys think? How do we handle that objection? Or what makes it an objection in the first place?
I wasn't listening.
That's okay. So I'm saying, what makes attorney selection an objection, and how can we handle the objection as well? So I'll just kind of tell you the answer. It could make or break your deals, basically. If let's just say there was, I'll give you scenarios. Let's just say that there was 12 offers on the table, and you worked so hard to obtain this, and they selected your offer, and your attorney, your buyer's attorney, your buyer attorney is typically the first one that sends the rider out, the initial rider out, and it's 2 days later and they haven't sent anything out, and the listing agent and the seller are now concerned. What is likely to happen in that scenario? They might very possibly approach you and say, hey, listen, we got a higher offer. Hey, listen, we're going to our backup. You guys aren't serious, right? Or what happens, let me give you a different scenario. What happens if there was 8 offers and you were the one selected, and now your buyers are scrambling to find an attorney, and they're the type that like to speak and interview the attorney, maybe even in person, and now we're like several days later and they still don't have an attorney selected? What happens? You might lose the offer, right? They might go to their backup. You might get a higher offer, especially in today's crazy environment. It's really, really important to communicate to our buyers that the attorney you select really needs to be on top of their you-know-what. They need to be a real estate attorney. They need to be very, very responsive. They need to know that there was multiple offers. They do communicate, and they are on the same page with us. This is a team effort. These are our clients. We are their support system. This is not a, I know best type of thing. So, we want somebody that's going to also charge a flat rate. Some attorneys don't charge flat rates. Some attorneys charge per hour, per email, per phone call, per whatever. So yes, we want to recommend somebody that's going to take very good care of them, somebody that's going to be very responsive, somebody that's going to get us out of attorney view quickly, somebody that is going to promote their best interest, somebody that is going to charge them a flat rate and communicate with us at a very high level, because we're all in the same team here. So how do we do that? How do we handle that objection? Well, I call this an objection because we have the ability to handle this objection up front. How do we do it? It's a simple question. Very simple question.
You got it, Viola. Buyer consultation. You know this.
Right. So during our buyer consultation, we're asking a very simple question. Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, do you know which attorney you're going to be working with? That's it. And they're going to say the majority of the time what? No, I don't know who we're going to work with. Well, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, it's really, really important that we select a good one. Would it be helpful to you if I sent you a list of recommendations of some attorneys, and you can select any which one of them, but I can tell you that each one of them is going to take very good care of you. Would that be helpful to you? Yes. And now we're guiding them towards our recommendations. Now you can give them 2, 3, 5, 20, but we do have, now if you don't know any attorneys, it's okay. The market centers on their pages, they do have the recommendation list. I think there's about 10 or 12 attorneys that the market centers do recommend. And they're all very good. Some of those attorneys on those lists are actually some of my recommended attorneys as well. So you have access to some recommendations if you need them. All right. Any questions, thoughts, comments about this particular topic, issue?
Nope.
All right, let's go next. Oh, there is no next. I didn't put any more samples in here. So what we can do is we can do either a Q&A or we can actually go over real life scenarios. What do you guys want to do? This is your class, your session. I can just keep talking if you want me to. All right. So when it comes to handling objections, I can tell you that your skill improves over time. It doesn't. You don't have the ability necessarily right away, because it's not something that we dealt with, but it's something that's learned. Everything in this world is learned, right? And it does take time. You don't learn it in a day, and that's okay. So the more you say something, the more you do something, the more it's internalized. So maybe you come across a scenario and you don't know what to say, but once you leave that scenario, you think, oh, I should have said this, I should have said that. I can guarantee you with 100% certainty that the next time that same scenario pops up, you'll be better prepared for it, and that's okay. So sometimes the experience itself is the best learning lesson, and that's okay. You're going to take positive. There's a silver lining in every scenario, even when it doesn't necessarily work out. So that's also why I don't call them failures. I call them frustrating experiences. So when you don't know how to handle somebody that says, you know what, I don't want to get pre-approval letter right now. I want to see homes. Show me the homes. Oh, you know what? I have an agent, but they're not available right now. I want you to show me this home. Or it's like, oh, I selected this attorney. He's my cousin. He's a real estate attorney in New York, and he doesn't usually do. He's a trial attorney. We know how to handle it, and there's different scenarios that pop up all the time, and we may or may not be prepared for it. Yet we will get better from it. It doesn't matter if you've seen it before or you haven't seen it before, right? Because you're always getting better, even if you've already seen it before. So you just get better at it, that's all. Sometimes we just have to be doing things over and over and over again just so we can get better doing it, like anything else, right? I compare real estate to to school. You know, the majority of us, you know, we get our real estate license and they say go work. Yet when you get your real estate license, you're in kindergarten, and you can't go to first grade unless you get through kindergarten, unless you have the experiences that are provided in kindergarten. You can't go to first grade, and so on and so forth. And you can't go to sixth grade if you don't have the experiences of a fifth grader. You just can't do it. You can't get your real estate license and say I'm in kindergarten, but you know what? I want my master's degree right now, please. Please hand it to me. Give it to me right now, please. You can't do that. You see, before you get your master's degree, you have to get your bachelor's degree. And before you get your bachelor's degree, you have to get through high school. Before you get through high school, you have to get through middle school. Before you get through middle school, you have to get through grade school, so on and so forth. So understand, there is a learning curve. This is with anything that we do real estate related, it's going to take time, and that's okay. The more experiences you have, the more meetings you have, the more conversations you have, the quicker you'll get there, right? So the frequency, the intensity will dictate the pace we get there too. So the more hours you put in, the more you get out of it. The more experiences you have, the more you get out of it. All right? Will it take a year to get to the next level? Well, it depends what next level looks like. Let's define it as goals, right? You know, everybody has different goals, everybody has a different definition of success. Just so your levels may look differently than somebody else's levels. The question is, what are your goals for this year? What are your goals for next year? How do you reach them? How do you plan for them, right? How do you approach them? How do you get there? And, you know, as long as you know the destination, the how-to shows up. Now, sometimes we don't know. You've done all the thinking, you've done all the research, you're putting in all the hours, yet you're not getting anywhere. That's when you're missing something. And generally, it's one of three things. It's generally tools, systems, or people. So who? And sometimes the who could be a productivity coach, it could be a mentor, it could be another agent, somebody that has already walked that path, has already arrived where you're looking to get to, and you're going to shadow them, you're going to learn from them, and they'll make you better for it at a much quicker pace, because who you surround yourself does matter. And obviously the morning mindset is a small piece of it, and Scotch and Scripts is a small piece of it, and the productivity coaching or launch coaching is a piece of it. And then of course people have coaches and mentors, and that's a piece of it. Yet if you're looking to get there faster, then it really comes down to those three things: people, systems, and tools. And if you don't have a system, it's going to affect your conversion. And if you don't have the right tools, it's going to affect the time and energy you put into something, and it's going to affect your conversion too. And if you don't have the right people around you, it's going to affect everything else as well. So, we're always looking to grow. As long as we wake up in the morning and we say, okay, the goal for today is to be better than we were yesterday, and the goal for tomorrow is to be better than we are today, you already got yourself a head start. So you just gotta think that, okay, we're always getting better every day, every experience, every meeting, every conversation. It's always going to get better. And I'll leave you with this. I'll leave you with a vision, right? Because I don't know when each of you got your licenses. Okay, it may have been a month ago, it may have been a year ago. Are you better now than when you first got your license?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, and when did you get your license, Leslie?
2 months ago.
Okay, you got 2 months ago. Let me ask you a question. Are you going to be better 2 months from now than you are today?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, can you see it?
Yep.
Yeah, that's really, really important. And let me ask you an additional question. Are you going to be better a year from now than you are 2 months from now?
I'm 100%, no question.
And can you see it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And are you going to be better 5 years from now than you are a year from now? Yeah, see, that's how growth works. But it's really, really important that we see it.
Right.
What makes that important? It pushes us forward. On those days that we have frustrating experiences, on those days we don't feel like getting out of bed, on those days that we don't feel like doing what we need to be doing, that's what pushes us forward. That's why it's important to actually see where you're going. Again, if you don't know where you're going, well, any road will take you there. Right? It's the famous quote by Lewis Carroll. So let's just put the time, put the energy, put the effort in, and understand, yes, we're going to be having some frustrating experiences, yet the more we have of those, the more success we'll have. You can't reach success without overcoming some challenges. It just doesn't work that way, right? There's no elevator to the top of the mountain. So just put the time, energy, and effort in, and you'll get to where you want to go. Of course, if you have a plan in place, that will get you there faster. If you have the right people around you, that'll get you there faster. All right? So any last thoughts, comments, opinions, issues you guys want to share?
I was just going to ask, obviously there are a ton of objections that can come, an agent's way. And since, you are a buyer's agent, I was just wondering if there were like your top 3 objections that you consistently see.
Yeah, a pretty common one. If you've come across enough buyers, not lately for some reason, but before things got crazy, many buyers, they just didn't have their pre-approval letters in hand. So they'd say, show me a house, but they didn't have it in hand. Now, I'll tell you, I haven't come across that in a long time, and I meet a lot of buyers. There's a lot of buyers out there, yet the majority of them actually have pre-approval letters in hand for one reason or another. So they're a lot more prepared. I don't see that objection come up as often. But in the past, it was one of the more common buyer objections. No, I don't want my credit pulled. Just show me this house. Now, if you don't have an objection handler in your back pocket, just go back to the benefit. And what I mean by that is, let's just take that as an example. Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, on the surface, that may seem like a good strategy. In reality, it doesn't benefit you. Can I explain why? So I'm agreeing with them. All right, we agree. And then we present them with a story/solution. It's just it's a closing tactic. So we're going to say, well, in today's market, it's a very strong seller's market, and the homes are here today, gone tomorrow. And I cannot submit an offer without a pre-approval. And now what I'd hate to see is that I'm going to show you this house. You're going to fall in love with it. It's the one. It's the perfect one. It's the right one. You're envisioning your family, your furniture in there. And by the time you get me a pre-approval letter to submit the offer, that house is gone. And what I'd hate to see is that's the one that got away, and we're always comparing every future property to that one, and I don't want to see that happen. Do you see the benefit in obtaining a pre-approval letter now? Would it be helpful to you if I sent you some recommendations for some mortgage brokers that will take very good care of you and help you obtain that pre-approval letter? Would that be helpful to you? Yeah. So you always go back to the benefit. I do it with stories because I think stories are the most compelling thing to human beings. So I try to include stories in the objection handlers themselves. So that's just, it's a way. Always go back to the benefit. Well, you see, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, you can't submit an offer if you don't get a pre-approval letter, and that's going to be the one that got away. I hate to see that happen. Get a pre-approval letter. Now, a lot of them won't get a pre-approval letter because they don't have a mortgage broker. They're not telling you that. So if you say, I always like to say, would this be helpful to you? Would this benefit you? Would this be of value to you? Because the way I ask the question, it increases the likelihood I gain compliance and yeses. So, and then I send it over. I can also CC the lender themselves on the communication, and then they're going to be contacting them for sure. All right. So that's a common one. What's another common one? I still think that attorney selections, let me review this offer, and inspections are pretty big ones. I want you to show me this house is a pretty common one actually nowadays. That's what the pre-qualification is for. So when we're pre-qualifying, it is really important to ask, are you working with an agent? Half of them that are incoming calls, inbound calls on your own listings, they usually have agents, but those agents aren't able to accommodate them at that very moment, the day and time that they want to see the house. Maybe they're away, maybe they're just not available, they have other appointments, who knows, maybe they're getting married, whatever, right? So they say, well, I want your listing agent to show me the house. So how do we, now everybody can choose how to handle that particular objection. I'm not going to waste my time on somebody that's already working with another agent. I understand that the majority of them have not signed exclusive buyers agencies because 99% of them don't, yet I'm not stepping on any toes. So I simply handle the objection by saying, hey, I can definitely show you this house, yet if I meet you at the property and I'm going to have you sign a document that says, if you like this house enough to submit an offer on it, that we're going to be representing you. Are you okay with that? Click. All right? Because I'm not interested in wasting my time. I got better things to do. Right? And plus, I don't want to step on anybody's toes. So
Right.
how do you handle that objection is up to you. Are there different ways to handle those objections? Yeah, sure. That's how I choose to do it.
Okay.
All right. Well, I want to thank everybody for participating. You guys are amazing as always. Thank you for being here. And next week, we're going to do a mastermind. So next week, I'm going to present you with a list of topics. You're going to choose the topic, and we're going to go at it. All right? That'll be fun. So I want to thank you guys for being here, and I'll see you next week.
Thanks,
Sounds good.
Rod.
Thank you so much.
Take care, everybody.
Great job. Talk to you soon.